Hi there, good evening. Thanks for joining me in this fresh edition of the program, The Inside, on Equinox Television. Tonight, we shall be revisiting some of the major headlines during the week, major events. We shall be revisiting the sitting of members of the Higher Judicial Council in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. It took place at the Unity Palace. Some of the shake-up that occurred after the meeting. We shall be looking at the retirement of the now former Advocate General at Cameroon Supreme Court, Justice Ayapola Bine. And what is delaying the release of Anglophones detained in the nation's capital, Yaoundé? We shall be revisiting a court case that was adjourned to June 29, 2017. This and more will be yours in this edition of the program. You are going to be meeting my guest. My guest tonight is a senior barrister at law. Discover my guest after this. Good evening. Thanks for joining me in this fresh edition of the program, The Insight, on Equinox Television. My guest tonight is Senior Barrister Ashu Agbo. Senior Barrister, good evening.
Good evening, Paul.
It's a pleasure welcoming you on board.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure having you now. We invited you in your capacity as a legal mind as well as a politician. Senior Barrister, when you look at the Higher National Judicial Council that met for the first time after that of 18th of December 2014, the major headlines that came out of as recommended or as resolutions, can you comment on them, or what caught your attention?
Well, I saw for the first time that there was some seriousness in taking into account the recommendations that the promises that the Minister of Justice made to the Anglophone people, notably that Anglophone magistrates will be posted to man most of the courts. And we can see that in actual fact, most of the courts are manned, will henceforth be manned by Anglophone magistrates and judges. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the main things that caught my attention. Then I also noted that Chief Justice, Justice Ayapola Bine went on retirement. Well, there was a major shake-up even in the ministry, where some people like Justice Guamesia, who was Secretary General, also shifted. Well, young magistrates were also integrated. Many magistrates were sent on retirement. Many, and many young magistrates were also promoted to outclass position. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a very deep change in the magistracy that has come with a wind of rejuvenation. See, the young judges have been given responsibility. See, from Douala Court of Appeal, we had about 6 who were made outclass magistrates. About 6. Even the former president of High Court, Vuri, was also made outclass magistrate and promoted to man the Court of Appeal of the Western Region, Bafoussam.
Mm-hmm. Now, Barrister, when you look at 2014, 18 December, 2 years after, or close to 3 years after, you look at 2017. Now, when you look at the major decisions that were taken in 2014 and 2017, do you see any relationship with the Anglophone crisis in 2017?
Sure. In 2014, we had many Francophones who were posted to Bamenda, Buea, many of our courts. But after the Anglophone crisis erupted, there was this general outcry that people should, that the population wanted Anglophone judges who understand them and understand their law to man the courts. And the government promised doing that, and I think so far so good, they are meeting their promise.
Mm-hmm. So it's an indirect way of saying that we acknowledge there is an Anglophone problem?
Well, everybody has accepted the existence of Anglophone. You see, after the 4 ministers went to make their TV show where they said they pretended that there was no crisis, and their boss came and told them, no, there is a problem. He accepted that there was a problem. I think it can no longer be put into question whether there is an Anglophone problem or not. There is an Anglophone problem.
Now, when you look at the case of Chief Justice Ayapola Abine, now retired Advocate General, many others were equally put on retirement, but others are still there who were supposed to retire. You bear with me. Ayapola Abine, he arrived at retirement age. That was last December 2016. Do you see any link with his arrest, the Anglophone crisis that led to his retirement, even though he retired? But I discussed with Ayapola some time ago. He told me that the President Pobia could add him 2 more years. Is that the case?
That is purely discretionary. If he has attained retirement age, it is only but normal that he should be retired. Whether the age can be, he can benefit from an extension is a discretion of the President of the Republic.
Yes, exactly what he told me.
And in this particular case, I don't think the President or anyone in the Ministry of Justice had any interest in obtaining an extension for Justice Ayapola. So, if he had reached his retirement age, there's no problem with that. But the only problem that we are seeing is that that may have some consequences on the case that the government is trying to mount against him, because they were unable to issue any warrant against him by reason of the fact that as a magistrate of the, as a justice of the land, a senior justice of the land, a particular procedure had to be respected. The procedure for justice of the Supreme Court had to be respected, and it's only the Supreme Court that could take any action against him, and there was no complaint before that jurisdiction, so it was really a headache for them. So let's just see how the government will play their cards now that Aya is no longer in active service, and he has no form of immunity. Because what was the problem?
But you can't be bringing the issue of immunity here. He was arrested without an arrest warrant.
He was not arrested.
He was.
Please.
Aya was arrested on a Saturday.
Please, Aya was not arrested. Aya was deprived of his liberty without any warrant. You see, look, you can only talk of an arrest when there is a lawful warrant authorizing that arrest.
Okay.
There is none. Who issued it? There is no warrant for his arrest. That is why the government has been in problems with the Ayapola Abine case, because there was nobody to issue a warrant for his arrest. The only person, as I said, who could have done so was an examining magistrate of the Supreme Court. And that could have only been possible if there were a complaint with civil party that had been filed at the Supreme Court and an examining magistrate appointed. That was not done. So he has been deprived of his liberty. He has been kept on. It's just like somebody you arrest and take to the police station. He is not awaiting trial. He is just being kept as somebody kept at the police station.
Now,
like the Francophone will say, examine the situation.
Now, legally, we know that at the police station there are a certain number of days limit which you can keep somebody. At the State Defense Secretariat, what are the number of days? You are a legal mind, a barrister.
That situation is purely illegal, because nobody. First of all, for you to detain somebody that way, in any unit, you need a complaint. And the complainant has to come forth and confirm his complaint and bring his witnesses to start a judicial process. But in this particular case, there has just been a stalemate because of the quality of person, the caliber of the person that they had in front of them, who was protected by the reason of his profession. So now that they have shaken off that reason, well, let's see how they go with it. But as I keep saying, the government had no legal backing for arresting, for depriving Ayapola of his liberty. Okay. They don't have any warrant.
All right. Now, many were talking of a clemency and an amnesty when the Aya Judicial Council met. They were talking of clemency. As a legal mind, what is the difference? Because many were speculating, if they don't release Bala, the president might give a clemency, amnesty. So what is the difference, and how can the president come in at this stage?
Now, before you talk of presidential pardon, this is only applicable in a case where the entire judicial process has been exhausted. Somebody has been convicted. he appealed or didn't appeal. If he does not appeal, the judgment is final. If he appealed and went on appeal and it was confirmed, the judgment must be final. Then he can now appeal to the president for pardon or grace. But in the case of Aya, there has been no case. No court has entertained any matter. In the case of my learned colleague, Abobala, no court has passed any judgment yet, so we cannot talk of
clemency.
Yes, presidential pardon. What we can do here, you see,
what about amnesty?
That is possible.
So how can the president go about giving them amnesty?
But it's a discretion. You can't force him. It's a discretion. That's what you see. I was just about to say that you have, before you even reach that's the era, you have the possibility of the president asking the Minister of Justice, because he has that right under the Criminal Procedure Code, to discontinue any matter. He can instruct any Procurator General to stop the case without any reason. Just say discontinue, give a notice of discontinuance, and the case will be halted forthwith. For that one, they don't need any decree. Just say, I don't want this case anymore, and the Procurator General will say, I am withdrawing the matter, period. If they don't want that one, okay, then they can say, we want the president to have some political feathers by saying that he has granted amnesty as well. But what the amnesty is an excuse. I've excused them for whatever they did. There should be no case. So that amnesty is that one is a bit political, because he will have the president will have the reward of having personally given the measure. Whereas if the prosecutor general withdraws the matter, nobody will know that the order is from the president.
Okay, we'll be coming back to that in the second part of this program. I want us to look on the Aya case, because it is over 140 days now since he has been in prison. Now, how can Aya-Paul Abine be released? What should be done for Aya-Paul Abine to be released?
I hope I am not going to infringe on the rights of on the duty of his lawyers, because I am not briefed for him. I'm not his lawyer. I don't have any right to comment on his case. I mean, on the technicalities of his case.
Yes.
But in a case like that one, where somebody is being detained without any warrant, the lawyers have done what was supposed to be done. They came up with habeas corpus, which was quite correct. We all know that no habeas corpus will be granted to him, because his detention is more like a political detention. It's more like a detention under the penal code, what they call detention in the penal code. It's akin to that, because that one is political. You don't need to have a warrant. The arrest will go and keep you there and wait and see what will come out. I don't want to venture into the technicalities of his case, because legal practice has its rules.
You definitely know something. You definitely know something about that. But now you've touched something political. So could we say today that even the case with Aya-Paul Abine, like you said, is political? Could we say that the politicians or the executive have an upper hand over the judiciary? When you look at just what happened at the higher judicial council, we know that the higher judicial council at times, there was a time when they spent about 5 years before meeting. So it is only the president, the executive, who has the power to do all those things. So when you look at it today, Barrister, are we living with the judiciary down, the executive who are manning everything?
Well, we are in a state where we don't have the three organs of the state. You see, we have to understand this. In a classical state, you have the three organs, which are the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. In Cameroon, we have what you call in constitutional law a presidentialist regime. That is a presidential regime that has been tampered with, and the powers of some of the organs watered down in favor of the executive. So in Cameroon, you have the judiciary that has been transformed into some sort of a department under the Minister of under the government and placed under the Minister of Justice. So you have the Minister of Justice who is in fact carrying out the functions of head of the judiciary, whereas that ought not to have been the case if we wanted this country to have 3 organs. So as of today, in Cameroon, they normally talk of l'autorité judiciaire. We have a judicial authority and not a judicial organ.
So it's supposed to be a judicial organ.
It is supposed to be a judicial organ. That is an independent judiciary.
So a minister who is appointed by the president and executive.
He is first of all member of government. So you can see that the judiciary, which ought to be an organ, has been made to be part of the government. You say, look, the government is the executive. When you take the judiciary and place it under a Minister of Justice, you are making an entire organ part of another organ. See, you put it under a minister who is answerable to the Prime Minister and to the President. So you see the role that has been given to the judiciary. You cannot talk of a judicial organ. So that is the root of what you are trying to explain. By reason of that fact, judiciary workers in the judiciary are bound to be subjugated to the executive for their appointments, for their salary, for their pay, even for instructions.
But is that supposed to be the case?
Well, we are saying that it's not supposed to be the case because the normal case is that the state has to have 3 organs. So now we have 2 organs in actual fact.
But on paper we have 3 organs.
No, we have 2 organs. Officially, this state, Cameroon, is known to have a judicial authority, not a judicial organ. No, we don't have a judicial organ. We have a judicial authority.
In a democratic country like Cameroon?
Advanced democracy. See, when they talk of advanced democracy in Cameroon, you should understand that it has gone beyond the state of democratic country. So in our advanced democracy, we have a whole organ that has been placed under a minister.
So what is advanced there about the democracy?
What is advanced is that we have the privilege of subjugating a whole organ under him who is governing the country, putting the whole organ under the boots of the executive.
We even see this reflecting even with the legislative. If you follow the plenary session, the first day of the second ordinary session of the parliament, that's the National Assembly as well as the upper house, you will see how the House of Keeper or Speaker of the National Assembly, Kavayege Jibril, praised the government on certain issues that the government have taken so far to resolve a crisis in the country. But we shall be coming back to that in the later part of this program. Senior Barrister Ashu Agbo, let's conclude with the higher judicial council that met in Yaoundé at the Unity Palace. Now, politically, did you see any political aspect of it, especially when we read the communique that was first of all signed by the Secretary General of the Judicial Council, saying that an Anglophone has been appointed to head the judicial bench? Was that politically driven?
Well,
to precise there that an Anglophone was...
please, you see, I will not want to see politics everywhere. The president instructed the Minister of Justice to make promises, and these promises were respected. So I don't think that those promises were made by the CPDM. We should be honest. It is not CPDM that made the promises. It is Mr. Biya in his capacity as President of the Republic. Let us give honor to whom it belongs. In this particular case, he has respected his promise. So I think we should let it go. He promised, and we see him respecting. We are only expecting Parliament to come up with an amendment of the rules governing the procedure governing the organization of the Supreme Court, so that everything will be in place.
What did you
see politics.
What did you expect the higher judicial council to discuss on, which they did not touch on?
Well, their discussions are normally in camera. We cannot know what they're discussing. We only know the big heads.
That's what I'm saying. Going by the final communique.
The big heads. No, I look at the things. I look at what came out of it. Normally, they have to examine disciplinary files of magistrates. They normally don't expose their deliberations. They have to look at admission of young magistrates who have to be integrated into the magistracy. We saw all the names, they were all integrated and posted. They have to look at promotions that was done. I think they did everything. The only thing I did not see in the final communique and in the newspapers is the files that were brought for presidential pardon. I didn't see any note on that. I don't know whether none was presented to the council or they presented and kept it secret. I don't know. Then, from what we saw, that was the only thing that seems to be absent.
Okay, all right. Now, many equally talk about the putting in place of the constitutional council. Since
we
1996,
we are going.
Because it looks like Parliament might be discussing or discussion might be moving towards that.
Mr. Anfor, we have to be very careful in this country. CPDM has gone and they have awoken the sleeping lion. Under the French system, the highest court is the Constitutional Court. Under the English system, the highest court is the Supreme Court. So now that they want common law, they are rehabilitating common law, you are going to have a big conflict. The highest court in common law is Supreme Court. The highest court in the French system is Constitutional Court. So which is the highest court of Cameroon? Now that we have a bilingualism and multiculturalism, you have a bilingual and multiculturalism, what they call it, committee, that has to equate. So which court is going to be the highest one now? Supreme Court or Constitutional Court? They are supposed to be the same.
Barrister, you make me laugh better. When you look at the Constitutional Court, are you sure anytime soon we'll have a Constitutional Court put in place?
You see, that court to me, that court has never meant anything much to me, because a court that can only be seized by the President of the Republic to sit on constitution. In actual fact, to be honest, the Constitutional Court by the Cameroonian definition, forgive me, it's a useless court.
Why?
What work does it do? It does nothing. It's only present in electoral matters. Electoral matters to say, okay, this is the person who has won the election.
And also when the
president... And then when the president comes to say, this is a matter of constitutionality. The president, not the... Ordinary citizens don't have the right to go there. So, it doesn't do any work. The bulk of the work is done by the Supreme Court. I think we ought to come back to our senses. Give those powers to the Supreme Court to manage the judicial matters properly.
But the Constitutional Court has been inscribed in the 1996 Constitution, Barrister, which has not been put in place. Are you saying that they made a mistake in 1996 by previewing the putting in place of the Constitution?
You understand what I'm saying? They provided that thing in 1996. Today, they are trying to mend the errors of the past and to take into account the Anglophone component. And I am saying that in the English system, we don't have Constitutional Court. It's the Supreme Court that takes care of everything. So when you carry Constitutional Court, which is for French system, the Supreme Court for English system, you have a conflict here of authorities. Which one is going to be above the other? Are they going to, you see, under the setup we have now, the Supreme Court is under the Constitutional Court. If that is maintained, then the Constitutional Court, then you have the French system standing above the English system, which is wrong. They are supposed to be equal. So they have to come up with some amendment that will put those two courts at the same level. And I am saying that if we look at the work done since that Constitutional Court was created, Supreme Court has been doing its work. I don't see anything wrong with the Supreme Court continuing. They should scrap that thing and leave Supreme Court as the highest court of the land, so as not to have conflict with Anglophones and Francophones on that issue. That's my point.
Okay. You're watching The Inside on Equinox Television. My guest tonight, Senior Barrister Ashu Agbo. He's a member of the Cameroon Bar Association. Senior Barrister, now still in line with the Higher Judicial Council and all what has been happening the past week. When you look at the opening of the National Assembly and the words that came out from the House Speaker, Kavayege Jibril, first of all, we thank the government and appreciated government's effort in making sure that we don't have a blank academic year in Cameroon. There was a minute of silence for Monseigneur, the late Monseigneur Jean-Marie Benoit Bala of the Bafia Diocese, and a lot of others, as well as drug abuse in secondary schools. Then the boycott by some opposition parties at Unity Day that's 20th May. What did you make out of the speech, of the opening speech of the House Speaker?
Well, I think the House Speaker does not owe any duty to the President of the Republic. What we have happening today is simply the result of the fact that CPDM is in power and they have a majority in Parliament. That is just a simple problem. They are in power. It is their president, is their candidate who is President of the Republic, and they have a majority in the Senate and in the Parliament. So that gives room to a type of situation where one has the impression that it is the CPDM president that is influencing the Parliament and the government and everywhere. If Mr. Kavaye wants to do his job properly, I bet you Mr. Biya has nothing to tell him. Look at the laws. Look at the rules governing assembly. Mr. Kavaye, if he wants to do his job properly, he has no question, nothing to answer, to take from the president. But since he is a militant of CPDM, he has always to thank his president and give the impression that it is his president who tells him what to do.
But that's party discipline,
which should not be in the official work of the Parliament. The Parliament is for the people of Cameroon. The Parliament is not a CPDM Parliament. So those parliamentarians have to get up from their slumber and start doing the job for which they are elected. They are elected as parliamentarians of Cameroon, of the Republic of Cameroon, not for CPDM. So they should stop using the opportunity that the state has given them to serve the nation, to instead serve their party. Because when he makes a speech and starts clapping for his president, he is serving his party, not the nation. There he is acting as a militant of CPDM and not as a parliamentarian of Cameroon.
So there was no need for him saying lambasting political opposition parties for boycotting the May 20.
Well, as a parliamentarian, he has the duty and the responsibility to see to it that the country runs well. So for that one, he has a right to comment on the activities of certain parties during that's why he is a parliamentarian. And you know, every parliamentarian is a national parliamentarian. Mm-hmm. It's not because you are from Bui that you only talk about Bui, you are for the whole nation. So it is correct of him to criticize people who boycotted the National Day. Mm-hmm. So I have my own opinion. National Day, well, it is a national day, you should celebrate it. You should not boycott a national day. But participating in the march past is something else. You can celebrate not by marching like a soldier. I have my own personal problem in that I don't see any reason why a civilian population should be made to march like soldiers. That is my own reason why you will never see Reform Party marching. I don't see why a civilian population should be made to march like soldiers. We are not in a military state. And when I look at what happens in other countries, Cameroon seems to be all alone. I don't see any other country doing the same thing. You have primary school children all marching like soldiers. No. It's terrible. So I think it was not a good idea to boycott. You can celebrate a national day in many manners. If you don't want to march, there are other ways of celebrating. But you don't say you are boycotting it. It is your national day. Are you not proud of that day? It's a national day. It's a national event. It marks us, whether you celebrate or not. You cannot change the national day. So I don't think it's a nice thing to boycott.
Okay. One last thing he said was he brought back memories of the late Monseigneur Jean-Marie Benoit Bala. You follow up development of that story since when he went missing, the time he was declared missing and everything, and now it is alleged that he was assassinated. Today, when you look at what is happening in the church these days, in the Roman Catholic Church, are you worried about the future of the church today?
Well, I'm really surprised that for the first time the death of a man of God is mentioned in Parliament. Others have been killed in the past. Yves Plumet, Monsignor Yves Plumet was killed in Ghana. I never heard any person mentioned in Parliament. But I congratulate them for standing up this time to say, well, this is not a good thing. I personally, before the official conclusion could come out, when I look at the evidence, I personally concluded that this man was killed. They claim that, for instance, the corpse had been inside water for 3 days. When you look at the corpse, the first thing you notice is that the skin is not white. The skin is not white. The man drank no water. How can you put a corpse inside water for 3 days and he doesn't drink water? That's not possible. I am a waterman. We are sour people. So we know how a corpse will behave if you put it inside water. Then look at the photograph of the corpse. When you zoom it, I zoomed in and I saw that there were signs that this man was tight, the hands were tight, and the legs also. You see, because there were signs of blood, traces of blood like that, showing that a string had passed there. A string or something had passed there. So you see, you take the note, the so-called note, suicidal note, that is the claim he had written. God, you can clearly see that this was the writing of somebody who was under great distress. Letter J came first. Then after about a few millimeters came E. You see the height of the J, you go to the E is big. Then the other letters now abnormally small. So it looks like he started fearing. Then they gave him small assurance and say, do the thing quickly. Then you come now to the position of his car. How can a man who is going to Yaoundé find his car facing his house? He was supposed to go the opposite direction. Now his car was inside, coming from Yaoundé. Wonderful. That was so starting. Then I asked myself the question, this man is supposed to have committed suicide. Why will he leave his house where he would have committed his suicide peacefully to go and commit suicide in the river under some type of no, it doesn't hold water at all. He could not have committed suicide. It's not possible. But I mean, as a legal mind, I will ask myself the question: if this man wanted to commit suicide, what was the reason for the suicide? What was the reason? You cannot, a man of God, whose duty it is to bring peace to people's minds, cannot be seen to take away his own life for no reason. Which problem did this man have? To who did he mention the problem that he had and had no solution to it, up to the state that he had to take away his life? No. And he's a man of God. No, it will not happen. So I personally concluded that that was a murder case. And I hope light will be thrown into that case, because the way it was carried, it was conducted. I think he was kidnapped, carried 17 kilometers downstream where they tortured him, and when they saw that people were focusing on searching for him upstream, they dropped him downstream for fishermen, for a passerby to come and pick. It was something well calculated.
All right, let's take a break. Let's move to the machines and see just how the trial of some 27 Anglophones took place in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. Roland Akong sent us this report. When we come back, my guest and I will be looking at the case pitting the Anglophones as well as the state and even some Cameroonian bishops, the PCC and the CBC.
The presiding judge of the military court says she could not grant bail to the detainees of the Anglophone problem because of the crimes committed. She used Article 246 of the Penal Code to justify. The denial of bail is an embarrassment to both the detainees and the defense counsel. Mancho Bibixi for the first time appears in court handcuffed, crawled with his buttocks, looking unkempt, saying he's frail since he started a hunger strike last Sunday, protesting his detention. The proper hearing of the matter of the Anglophone, of the detainees of the Anglophone problem begins June 29.
Roland Akong with a brief story of what took place last Wednesday. My guest tonight, Senior Barrister Ashu Agbo. He is the president of the Reforms Party, a member of the Cameroon Bar Association. As Senior Barrister, everyone was expecting that Barrister Agbo Bala Congo and Dr. Fontaine, at least for the two, will be released on judicial supervision. The presiding judge refused, even though the magistrate had showed signs that they could be released.
I beg your pardon. Not everyone was expecting the judgment you just mentioned.
Not even after magistrate
Not
had given
everyone.
okay.
Now, look, you see, law cannot be. You can bend it. You can bend law, but you cannot break it. An application was tabled before the court. The application was crooked. And the legal department, for reasons I don't understand, supported the application. This was a trap that was set to the trial judge. What am I talking about? Bail is provided for by two provisions, two sections of the Criminal Procedure Code. You have section 224 and section 222. You have self-bail and conditional bail. Self-bail is bail for big people of prominence. You don't expect a person of prominence to go call a riffraff to come and serve as his shorty. If you take a big businessman who has billions of dollars, you cannot ask him to come and ask a truck pusher to come sign that is going to shorty him with to pay the sum of 20 million francs. He has enough money to pay that he can able to pay whatever amount you're asking. So there is special bail for those type of people. You call it self-bail. The law says, section 222 says that all that is required of such a person is for him to enter into reconnaissance, sign a document before the court in which you promise to appear before the court each time you are needed. Mm-hmm. That is all. 222. You have to read that provision with section 249 of the Criminal Procedure Code, which extends, because 222 talks of the examining magistrate. So when you go to 249, it extends that provision to the Court of Appeal sitting as a control chamber and the trial court. 222 has no limitation as to offense, but 224 has a limitation as to the type of offense that are bailable and not bailable. Sub 2, 224, sub 2 clearly states that offenses punishable with life jail or death sentence are not bailable. So when you come and then 224, wait, let me learn. 224 says,
Barrister, how do we know that the offenses could be life jail or
the definition is given in the penal code. The penal code.
That's given the charges.
Yes,
Vandalism.
The penal code and the law of in this particular case, the law on terrorism gives you the sentence.
Okay.
Gives you, they say, whoever is guilty of this shall be punished with an imprisonment of from this to this, or death sentence. So that punishment is provided for in the law governing terrorism. So we know from that punishment that the offense is not bailable under section 224. And then there is something under section 224. They tell you that bail can be granted in the conditions provided for in section 246, and it is under 246 that they talk of judicial surveillance. Whereas under self-bail, judicial surveillance 246 is not compulsory; it's optional to the judge or magistrate.
Yeah, because you use 246.
So I am saying that if the application were presented, and I presume it was because they talked of judicial surveillance, which is automatically mentioned in 224, then it was ill-conceived. And it would have been a violation of the law on the part of the judge had she granted that application. My advice in such a case would be that reintroduce your application this time under 222.
That is
222, self-bail. Agbobala is an advocate. He does not need any shorty. He himself, self-bail. He should only enter cognizance. The other one is a professor. Enter recognizance, and that's what the law wants. So, if it is under that,
even if they have been charged with that is charges,
I want to give you
death sentence.
Yes, I personally have tried case law to the effect that cases attracting death sentences can have bail. They are available under 222. I have obtained. The unfortunate situation is that the person for whom I obtained that bail is working in Douala, and if I give his name, it will be a type. See, it's not nice because people will start looking at him a type. But I want to say that from Gwangalim, we all remember his case. He was tried in Bamenda. He was even sent to jail, but he was granted bail, whereas he was being prosecuted for capital murder. So that is an example of a case where you can see that offense is bailable.
In essence, what you are saying is that the
procedure was not well followed.
Yeah,
the proper demand was not presented.
Which means the fate of Anglophone leaders now is on the balance.
Why?
They might be
it is
sentenced to death. Or
no. I am not saying that their fate is on the balance. I'm saying that particular application for bail was ill-conceived. It was not properly presented. Had they presented it under 222, the trial judge would not have said the offense is not bailable, because that's the answer. The offense is not bailable. The law doesn't provide for bail in that case. You see, because if it were 222 does not that is not conditioned under 224. It is its own provision alone. It has its own title, self-bail. 224 has its own conditional bail. So the one doesn't depend on the other. So that's why I'm saying that 222 is bailable. Under 222, that offense is bailable. Under 224, it is not. And by mentioning that 246, that a judicial surveillance should be given to them, they are putting themselves under the not bailable part of the law.
Now, Barrister, after explaining all what you've done, is there need today for the release without condition of all these Anglophones if the government is really embarking on a national reconciliation?
Well, I personally think that the continuous detention of the arrested people makes room for further radicalization of the situation, because the ghost towns are likely to continue. I don't see any ghost towns stopping. They are likely to continue for as long as the people don't see their arrested brothers and sisters. Agbobala was pushing on for the release of those who were arrested before he himself was arrested. And had the government released the people Agbobala was asking them to release, there would have been no need to arrest him. Now they have arrested him and added on the ones in prison. And they want to go ahead. Okay, let us look at it. If the government goes ahead to obtain a conviction, what does it expect to get from the Anglophone population that has been sustaining civil strife and disobedience for 8 months? What do they expect to get? Expect people to allow everything to fall, to clap for them? They are causing further radicalization of the situation. The better thing for this government to do, so that peace and order should reign, is to release these people. The mechanisms that, you see, I heard some CPDM man say over television someday, the government should not be seen to be weak. Let me make this point clear. This is not a matter of weakness. This is not a type of case where you talk of a weak government. There is a situation that has been poorly managed. When I say poorly managed, the police people and the gendarmes who raped children in Boya have never been prosecuted. If you know of one who has been prosecuted, give me his name. They have never been prosecuted. Those who beat children, harm children, none of them has ever been prosecuted. Then why do you catch civilians and you want to kill them? Whereas the people you sent to go and work have never been punished. So you see, there is a sense of injustice in the air. The government should understand that this is not a situation of somebody being weak or another being strong. There can be no government if there is no people. And even in your own house, a father can be wrong and tell the child, please do this. So I think it is time, in the interest of the nation, it is time this government, this CPDM government, decides to release these people unconditionally. What is the reason for the case? That case is going for what reason? What are they going to obtain from that? Are we sure that these are the people? These people, is Agbobala a terrorist? Truly speaking, is Agbobala a terrorist? We have seen terrorism in Cameroon. At least from Kolofata incidents, every day they bomb and kill people. We know what terrorism looks like. How many bombs has Agbobala ever dropped anywhere? How many were found on him? Has he ever sponsored any terrorist attack? Has he ever? No. You see, it looks ridiculous. If just to look at the offense itself is ridiculous. We all know that Agbobala, Fontem, and all that cannot be terrorists. They cannot be. But they've carried, you see, the fact that they choose to go to military tribunal, which of course is a competent court. We all know that it is a political court. It's a political court. That is a court to settle political scores judicially. That is it.
Okay. Now, when you look at how Mancho BBC appeared in court, short trouser, unbuttoned shirt, sky blue, he was barefoot. They are currently observing a hunger strike, and recently about 71 of them wrote a joint letter to members of parliament asking them to intervene in this situation. Now, aside the Anglophones who are in Yaoundé, there are others who are free, but they have been dragged to court. I'm talking about the moderator of the PCC. I'm talking about the Catholic bishops in the southwest, that's the Bamenda Ecclesiastical Province, and the Cameroon Baptist Convention, the case which was adjourned to July 24. When you look at the case today against the bishops, the Presbyterian Church, the CBC, by the so-called Consortium of Parents, what is your reaction today?
It's an exercise in stupidity. Because I am a parent. I have children in dormitories. I have a child in dormitory in Kumba. I have another in Tiko. They are all in the house with me. Who is a parent who has ever paid his school fees to a bishop? Who? Which parent has ever given school fees to a moderator of Presbyterian Church? I say it's an exercise in stupidity. The bishop is not the principal of any school. If he is, give me the school where the bishop is the principal. Bishop is leader of a Catholic church diocese. And under the diocese, you can have about 5 schools. Boya may have about 5 Catholic schools under one diocese.
But they are the competent authorities.
No,
if
please,
there's something wrong,
please, we should not mix issues here.
Are you against summoning somebody in court?
I am
against, or against the court case in general.
I am against the fact that a religious authority can be carried to court because a school that is owned by the church for which he works, recruited a student, registered a student, and there was no school, not because of any fault of the school, because of social strife. There was no school. I mean, I think it's an exercise in stupidity.
So
because all of us know, we all know that the schools are not open because of insecurity. If there was no insecurity, tell me what happened to government school Bunadikombo, government high school Bunadikombo. What happened to government high school Mutengene that were burned down to ashes? If there's security,
government primary school at Tuakom too.
Of late in Bamenda, a child was harmed, was macheted, and almost lose her life because of the insecurity. So people should not be stupid to, go to that extent of dragging religious authorities to the court. Please, you see, our religious authorities, I am a Muslim, but I have a lot of respect for other religious authorities. A Catholic bishop commands the entire diocese. You undermine, when you take him to court, you are undermining his authority. That is wrong. The moderator of Presbyterian Church commands Presbyterian Church in Cameroon, in the whole Cameroon. How do you want the Presbyterian people to look at him when you carry him to court personally? Whereas you know it very well that you never gave school fees to this man. He never intervenes in any decision having to do with any school. The schools have their independent academic and administrative staffs. I don't see those type of cases prospering anywhere. I don't see it. It is a case for the gallery.
Reaction on social media almost the same, like what you said, because even recently on social media, information filtered that the moderator was supposed to be arrested. The veracity of that information we cannot independently confirm, but that goes a long way to show how information too is being distorted, especially on social media. And the reaction pouring is very touching. Many people say if these men of God are touched, they too will be touched. Today will be of the interest of the government to meet the so-called consortium of parents to say drop this case.
Who mandated the so-called consortium of parents? Who mandated them? Where did they get their mandate from? I said I am a parent. My child is going to PSS, Kumba. I have not given any mandate to any person to take moderator of Presbyterian Church to court. And I'm sure many other parents have never mandated anybody to call himself consortium or whatever. And if my memory is still good, I remember that this government banned the use of that word consortium. Why are they tolerating it when it comes to individuals who call themselves consortium of parents? Why? The consortium was banned. Why are they tolerating it? If the use of that word was banned, it should stay banned. You don't ban it for some people and then authorize it for others. It was banned when people were using it as to mean that they were representing Anglophone interests. But another group of individuals comes up now and is using the same consortium. It is simply act of parents. To go do what? To go stand against the real interest of the parents, which is upholding their moral rectitude. Because if you attack the moral authorities, you are attacking the rectitude of the place.
But are you not saying that some of the charges or the count against, when you look at the count against 7 count against the moderator of the PCC, one of them is that they have not paid their teachers. By so doing, the government has not been able to deduct its taxes. Does it have any direct relationship with the non-school resumption?
I beg your pardon. The moderator has not paid his teachers, and for that reason, the government has not been able. Can you show me other tax code where it is a criminal offense not to pay taxes, not to deduct taxes from his salary? What type of nonsense is that? It is not yet an offense in this country not to pay somebody who has not worked. A salary should be paid to somebody as a counterpart to work that has been done. If you yourself are saying that a man has not worked, you are asking that you should pay him what? He hasn't worked, so you want a salary for what? You are saying he has not worked, then you say he has not been paid a salary, and because the salary has not been paid, taxes have not been deducted. Stupidity. I think they should withdraw that nonsense and ask for pardon from the authorities that have been offended.
Okay, Senior Barrister Ashuagbo, before we go, what could be the panacea for all what is happening for school to resume in September? Because that will be the next fight now between the government and the so-called the band consortium. What should be done at this moment to make sure that we have a smooth back to school 2017-2018 academic year?
Thank you very much. I think that we have suffered enough. Our children have lost one academic year because no matter whatever they're doing as efforts to redeem the unredeemable, he cannot go. We consider that the children have lost 1 year. And to be honest, if he continues, my own children will go abroad. I will not leave any one of them here. I will send them all abroad because it cannot continue. It is in our interest that the school year resumes properly. But that cannot happen if what the population is asking for. You see, there is a big difficulty in talking to the crowd. The crowd that has no spokesman. When you're talking to it, who do you think will talk for the crowd? You can only get their answer from the reaction of the crowd. The Anglophone population can be likened to a crowd. The people they send forward to go and represent them were arrested and kept. So they don't have any person to talk for them now. Now you can only judge from the reactions. The ghost towns that are continuing. The buildings that are burned left and right. There are attacks on the people who want to support government. That shows you that there is acute discontent in the minds of the people. That needs to be addressed. And I am calling on the government as a politician. Please spare us another school year. Let us not lose this other school year that is starting in September. Release these people that are being kept, because that is the only request that has been made now like that. Release them. By not releasing these people, they are going to radicalize the Anglophone problem. And it can take dimensions that not even the devil knows. We have an interest in seeing our children go to school. We don't have an interest in having a nation where some children are going to school, others are not going. It is not in our interest. All parents want to see their children have a bright future. That bright future should not be for some children and not for others. And I want to remind them again, we are going into an electoral year. When I said sometime over this very channel that the Anglophone crisis is the open door for the CPDM exit, for the exit of the CPDM government, they thought I was joking. We are moving to the electoral year. If they don't solve this problem properly, they will pay a very big price. They should not be fooled to think that it is only Anglophone crisis. Let them carry out their opinion finding and see what the population, the Francophone population, thinks of the so-called Anglophone crisis. The whole country, I bet you, the whole country is solidly behind the Anglophones. And every tribe identifies its own problems as those which the Anglophones are suffering from. They also have similar problems. And they think that the Anglophones are simply courageous to voice out their own problems. So the government has an interest, a political interest, in solving this crisis as fast as possible, not allowing things to degenerate. Because one thing to carry on with that trial until they will have people convicted and maybe sentenced to death will only throw petrol on fire and will solve nothing.
Okay. All right. That was it. It's been so short, but surely we've arrived. It was a pleasure being with you. We hope that your recommendations will reach the right quarters, Senior Barrister Ashu Agbo.
That's my prayer. I'm a Muslim. I keep praying every day and asking God to give us peace in this country. Peace and harmony. Let peace come back to the streets. Let us live as we were before, harmoniously. Nobody will ever separate this country. Nobody will ever succeed in separating this country. Whether he be a Francophone or Anglophone, nobody. People should put that inside their heads. They can be saying that Anglophones are not trying to separate, but I see that the effort to separate this country are coming from Francophones, not Anglophones. Because when you keep doing the opposite of what the people are asking you, what do you think you are doing? Supporting the people or you are against them? We shall see how the population will react when it comes to going to the ballot box. We shall face the ballot box in 2018 and Reform Party will surprise all these people. I have the surprise packet for them.
Are you serious about that?
Reform Party will surprise them.
You have been talking about rigged election. If the election is
let them rig. Let them bring their rigging machinery this time. They will meet real problems on the way.
Okay, it was a pleasure having you in this edition of the program. Equally a pleasure being with you tonight in this day's edition of the program. Signing out from Douala, the entire team. Join me to say thanks for watching. Take our rendezvous next week Sunday. If you did enjoy the program, same time, 6:30 p.m., same channel. For Equinox Television. Good night.